I'm just a company CEO who's fully devoted to building my career. Yet somehow I ended up being treated like a backup plan, a sucker meant to clean up someone else's mess. All of this happened because my childhood sweetheart fell in love with some broke nobody. She loved him passionately, recklessly, and in the end, out of spite, she left the country while pregnant. What I never expected, however, was that years later she would come back and bring along a little boy, blocking my car head-on. When she saw me again, her face flushed with a shy, affected sweetness, but the very first thing she said completely stunned me. "Gio, your son is right here. Don't you want to say something to him?" Before I could even react, strange bullet comments suddenly floated across my vision. Finally, a smart female lead. The male lead only knows how to throw tantrums, honestly. The loyal puppy type second male lead is way better. Second male lead. Just say yes to her already. Sure, the kid belongs to her and the male lead, but if you treat him well, he'll definitely see you as his real father. Exactly. This kid is a genius prodigy. Just let him take over your company for practice. Even if it goes bankrupt, it'll be great experience for his growth. Hurry up and hold the kid. Better yet, take them to buy a diamond ring right now. Register your marriage tomorrow, and let the male lead watch you two being all lovey-dovey. Make that scumbag suffer. Looking at the pretentious, overly delicate act of my childhood sweetheart, and the utterly ridiculous, reality-defying bullet comments, I fell into silence. Everyone sounded so excited that I almost thought something good was happening. Turns out, they just wanted me to be the one picking up the pieces. Not only was I supposed to happily play daddy, but I was also expected to hand over the company I had built with my own blood and sweat, just so this random kid could use it as a training ground and run it into the ground. Are these people even human? Is there no sense of justice left? At that thought, the exhaustion from a full day's work instantly turned into surging anger. I pushed the car door open and stepped out. Then I raised my hand and slapped my childhood sweetheart across the face, shouting, "Willow, have I ever even touched so much as a finger of yours? Did you give birth to this kid through some kind of telepathic connection with me? I think when you came back to this country, you forgot to bring your brain with you." Chapter 1. The bullet comments exploded in shock. Holy shit, what's going on? Why did he hit her? Second male lead. What are you doing? What are you doing? Where's your devoted lover persona? Even if the female lead didn't tell you beforehand, she did it for your reputation. Right now, no one in the country knows the kid's identity. If you just acknowledge him, then he's yours. Exactly. The female lead gave you such a perfect chance to step in and take responsibility. How could you personally throw it away? Wah. Poor female lead baby. She got rejected by the male lead, and now she's even getting hit by the second male lead. How could he do that? You dared to hit our female lead baby. Second male lead. You're finished. I curse your company to go bankrupt. Under the overwhelming flood of insults, Willow clutched her swollen cheek, completely stunned. She simply couldn't understand it, nor could she accept it. The childhood friend who had always stood in front of her since they were young, shielding her from every storm, who tolerated all her willfulness and granted her every request. How could he actually hit her? The little boy holding her hand looked at me with a viciousness and hatred completely unfitting for his age. But after sizing up the obvious difference in our physiques, he didn't dare act. Instead, he stumbled forward and threw himself into Willow's arms, his voice instantly turning tearful, his acting flawless. "Wah, mommy, I don't want this dad. He's so scary." The impact snapped Willow back to her senses. She forced herself to crouch down and hold him. When she looked up at me again, her eyes were already brimming with tears, as if she had suffered an unbearable injustice. "Gio, how could you hit me? I've been abroad for so long, and the very first thing I did when I came back was bring our child to see you. Even if you don't love me anymore, if you've grown to despise us, you still shouldn't hit me in front of the child. I truly didn't expect that you'd be the kind of man who plays with someone's feelings and then abandons them. I was wrong about you." Her voice trembled with emotion, her accusations vivid and convincing. If an outsider were present, they would probably believe I was some absolute scumbag who toyed with her feelings and abandoned both mother and child. Looking at her face, lying so effortlessly without even blinking, a wave of nausea suddenly rose in me. In my memories, Willow and I grew up together as childhood friends, always on good terms. Even our families used to jokingly refer to each other as future in-laws. To me, Willow had always been nothing more than a sweet, well-behaved girl next door, like a younger sister. Later, she went to university and met that so-called love at first sight senior she fell madly, hopelessly in love with. That man must be the male lead mentioned in those bullet comments. Their love burned intensely, so intensely that in less than half a month, they ignored both families' objections and insisted on getting married. I still remember how Willow's parents came to me back then, their expressions awkward and worried, asking what they should do, But I had never harbored any romantic feelings for Willow. At most, I cared for her as an older brother would a younger sister. Since she had found what she believed was true love, all I could do was offer my blessing. When they got married, I even attended as her brother from her side of the family, out of past affection. I also gave her ambitious yet foundationless senior a moderately sized business order for his startup, consider it a wedding gift. And what happened in the end? Less than a year into the marriage, news broke that their relationship had collapsed, and Willow insisted on going abroad. At that time, my company, Orange, was in a critical phase of preparing for its IPO. I was overwhelmed with work and only learned from Willow's mother that she was still alive, so I didn't pay much further attention. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect that after several years, the first thing she would do upon returning was show up with a child, block me downstairs at my company, and shamelessly demand that I take responsibility as the father. And judging from those bullet comments, it was clear she had first been rejected by the male lead after returning, and only then remembered me, this so-called brother. Looking at Willow now, lying without batting an eye, I simply couldn't reconcile her with the little girl who used to follow me around everywhere. Time, truly is a terrifying thing. It turns people into humanoid mimics. Chapter 2. Seeing me fall silent, Willow seemed to misunderstand something. A flicker of hope, and even a hint of secret delight, suddenly appeared in her eyes. She hurriedly spoke, trying to play the emotional card. Gio, I knew it. I knew you still had feelings for me. Don't you remember what you said when we were kids? That you'd marry me when we grew up, that we'd have a son and a daughter. Now Jordan is already this big, our promise is already halfway fulfilled. She pushed the child in her arms forward, urging anxiously, Jordan, quick, call him Dad, he's your father. The child's crying only grew louder, burying his face deeper into her arms, refusing to look up. It seems you really don't understand human language, I said coldly. I took out my phone, unlocked it, and dialed a number without hesitation. Hello, I'd like to report a case. A woman named Willow is publicly fabricating facts, falsely claiming that her child is my biological son, and using that claim to defame me and morally blackmail me. This has already seriously damaged my personal reputation and may also cause significant negative impact on the reputation and normal operations of my company, the Orange Group. Yes, the address is basement parking area B of the Orange Group headquarters. Please send officers as soon as possible. The moment my words fell, the bullet comments erupted. Second male lead. What did you just do? The female lead trusted you so much, treated you as her last support, and you actually called the police on her. Are you even human? Oh my God. The poor female lead baby thought she could find comfort with the second male lead. Turns out he's even colder than the male lead. Even if you really don't want to accept her and the adorable kid, you shouldn't just call the police. Couldn't you sit down and talk it out? Oh no. If she ends up at the police station, what will happen to her reputation? How will she face anyone again? Has anyone considered that what she's doing is basically treating the second male lead like an idiot? Doesn't his reputation matter too? It's understandable that he's angry. What do you mean understandable? Forget the facts. Does that mean the second male lead did nothing wrong? Traitor. Shut up. It's his honor that the female lead even chose him to step in as the fallback. Okay. After another explosive wave of bullet comments, Willow finally seemed to process the overwhelming information and realized what I had actually just done. Chapter 3. The color completely drained from her face. She looked at me as if I were a stranger, her lips trembling. Gio, do you even know what you're doing? I hung up the phone and looked at her like she was an idiot. Willow, not only is your brain broken, are your ears deaf too? I'm calling the police. No, you can't call the police. How can you call the police? She suddenly screamed, completely losing control, tears covering her face. George, how can you be so heartless? Even if you don't want me or the child, you can't treat us like this. We can sit down and talk this through. There must be a way to solve this. Talk it through. I stepped forward, my tone turning cold and menacing. You're relying on our childhood connection to shamelessly dump your mess on me with zero bottom line. When that fails, you flip the narrative and call me heartless. From beginning to end, you're the one stirring up this whole mess without any shame, yet in the end, it all becomes my fault. Willow, are these the disgusting tricks you learned after spending a few years abroad? There's nothing to talk about with someone who can't even understand basic human language. The more I spoke, the angrier I became. I raised my hand again. Smack. Another loud slap landed hard across her other cheek. The force was so great that she let out a scream and was sent crashing to the ground. Her carefully styled hair fell into disarray, leaving her looking utterly miserable. I looked down at her from above. 2 clear handprints, one on each side of her face, perfectly symmetrical, almost aesthetically balanced. After a closer look, I realized the second slap had been a bit too strong, making the swelling slightly uneven. So, Under Willow's horrified gaze, and amidst a flood of bullet comments like he's doing it again. A demon. Is he seriously correcting it for symmetry? I calmly raised my hand once more. Smack. The third strike landed precisely where it needed to. A fine adjustment. Much better. Nicely symmetrical. Willow's vision spun. Her ears rang loudly. Collapsed on the ground. She couldn't even cry anymore. She just covered her face, staring at me with a mixture of terror and disbelief. The little boy shrank to the side, too frightened to make another sound. No more acting, just trembling. Soon, the sound of police sirens grew closer. The police arrived quickly. After understanding the situation, they took Willow, who could barely walk, and the child into the patrol car. As the one who reported the case and a directly involved party, I naturally followed them to the station to cooperate with the investigation. After a paternity test, it was quickly confirmed that I had no biological relation to the child. Since the Orange Group is a prominent local enterprise and a major taxpayer, and I, as its CEO, am a well-known figure with considerable social influence, the police handled the case efficiently. Willow was immediately detained and imprisoned for defamation. Before being taken into custody, she looked at me with despair and a final trace of unwilling hope, tears shimmering in her eyes. Gio, you clearly said when we were little that you would marry me. How could you treat me like this? When I was a kid, I said I wanted to be an astronaut, and yet here I am, still walking on the ground like everyone else. Right. I cut her off with a cold scoff. I may not be able to fly, but I can make you fly. Willow, you'd better behave yourself and reflect properly in there. Chapter 4. After sending Willow to prison, I returned to my usual life, busy, yet calm. But at the same time, I didn't let my guard down. I had a feeling that this troublesome mother and son wouldn't just let things end like this. Especially that boy, with the venomous look in his eyes. For him to be labeled a genius prodigy by those bullet comments, he was definitely not as simple as he appeared. Sure enough, before long, the bullet comments in front of me surged wildly again. Unlike before, when they were full of anger and accusations, this time, every line was dripping with gloating excitement. Ah, the genius prodigy is about to strike. Genius prodigy online. Hurry and hack into Orange's system. Teach this evil second male lead a lesson. Yes, dig out all his company's data and expose it. Make him go bankrupt. Make him kneel and beg mommy for forgiveness. Go, baby. Whether mommy can vent her anger depends on you. Looking at these comments, a cold smile curled at the corner of my lips. As expected, it's here, trying to take down my company through hacking. Thanks for the heads up. I immediately gave orders for the company's cybersecurity department to lay down a net so tight it would be impossible to escape. Not only did we reinforce all defenses, but we also deliberately set up several traps filled with fake data, just waiting for this so-called genius prodigy to take the bait. Watching the timing updates from the bullet comments, I personally stepped into the security center and began directing operations. Computer no. 2. Move the mouse 5 centimeters to the right. Yes, target is about to appear. He's hacking into that file. Proceed according to plan. Remember, I want his exact physical location. Understood. President Wang. Calm responses came from the technical team around me. I leaned back in my chair, my gaze drifting past the window to the dazzling city lights. Come on, kid. Let me see just how capable you really are. You so-called genius prodigy, hyped up by those bullet comments. Let's see whether you bankrupt my Orange Group first. Or I send you in to keep your mother company. With my guidance, it didn't take long for the tech team to make progress. President Wang, the fish has taken the bait. The opponent's techniques are indeed tricky. He bypassed several layers of our standard defenses and went straight for our core data zone. He's currently downloading a large amount of fake files. Tracking signal locked. The source is coming from an old residential area in the western part of the city. The exact address is good. Maintain real-time monitoring. Make sure every action is recorded and archived. Let him take the files, but not too quickly. Keep the tracking signal active. I ordered calmly. At the same time, report to the police. Say we've discovered a hacker stealing critical commercial secrets from our company, and that the location has already been identified. Yes. After receiving the report from the Orange Group, the police took it very seriously and acted swiftly. As it turned out, the kid had probably spent too long overseas. He clearly had no idea how fast and decisive law enforcement response could be here. By the time the police broke down the door, the boy named Jordan hadn't even finished decrypting and reviewing the downloaded files. Caught red-handed, the operation logs on the computer were crystal clear, irrefutable evidence. Soon after, I was notified by the police and went to the station. While handling the formalities, I saw Jordan, temporarily held in a waiting room, his head lowered, completely dejected. The bullet comments instantly exploded like a kicked hornet's nest. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. How could our baby fail? He's a genius. The second male lead must have played dirty tricks. Shameless and despicable. Wah. My genius prodigy got sent to prison. What kind of trash plot is this? Author. Come out and face me. It's over. It's over. What will the female lead do when she gets out? This child's future has been completely ruined by this vicious second male lead. Has anyone considered that the kid broke the law first by trying to destroy the second male lead's company? Isn't this just reaping what he sowed? So what? He's still just a child. Why is the second male lead taking things so seriously with a kid? So cold-blooded. I regret reading this. My brain feels polluted. I desperately need a clean brain after this. Same here. At this point, I'm just hoping the second male lead wipes out these humanoid mimics to avenge my brain. Go. Second male lead. Chapter 5. Hearing footsteps. Jordan quickly looked up. The moment he saw it was me. His face instantly filled with fear and pleading. Uncle, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I was just too angry. I wanted to get revenge for my mom. I didn't actually mean to commit a crime. I didn't want to cause you any loss. Considering I didn't really do anything, please let me go. Revenge. Didn't mean to commit a crime. Didn't cause any loss. I looked at him and let out a slow sigh, my voice completely unmoved. Jordan, your values are just like your mother's, rotten from the very root. Your mother fabricated lies and defamed others, and was punished by the law. Yet you see me as your enemy. You illegally hacked into my company's system and stole commercial secrets. There's clear evidence, yet you claim that because you didn't succeed, it doesn't count as a crime. Lawyer Song. I turned to the top-tier lawyer beside me. Please pursue the maximum sentence. Lawyer Song adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses. President Wong. Rest assured, very soon, due to the involvement of commercial secret theft and the malicious nature of his actions, Jordan, despite his young age, was still sent to a juvenile detention center for a considerable period of correction and rehabilitation. Several months later, Willow was finally released. Because her defamation had not caused especially severe consequences, and her attitude in admitting guilt was acceptable, she was granted release. The very first thing she did after getting out was to ask about her son. When she learned that her so-called genius son had not only failed, but had also been sent to juvenile detention for hacking, she completely broke down. Almost without any regard for anything else, she rushed straight to the entrance of my Orange Group headquarters, waiting like a madwoman along the route I take after work. The moment I stepped out of the building, she lunged at me, only to be firmly stopped by security. Her eyes were bloodshot as she struggled wildly, her hair disheveled, her chest heaving with rage. Her voice was so shrill it nearly pierced the ears. George, how could you do this? How could you be so vicious? You refused to marry me, refused to acknowledge the child. Fine, I can let that go. But how could you go after Jordan? How could you send him to a place like that? He's still just a child. He only made a mistake for a moment. How could you be so cruel? A child. I looked at her coldly. Willow, you keep saying he's just a child, but do you have any idea that if his so-called moment of confusion had succeeded, how much Orange's stock price would have crashed? How many cooperative projects would have been immediately terminated? How many employees the company would have had to lay off just to survive the crisis? And behind those laid-off employees, how many families are there? Your child is a child, but my employees' children aren't. Their lives can just be casually destroyed by the selfishness and malice of you and your son. Willow, you're not just stupid, you're stupid and rotten. Rotten to the core. I had no interest in wasting more words on her. I raised my voice directly. Security, remove this person for causing a disturbance and severely disrupting workplace order. Remember her face, from now on. If she appears within 100 meters of the Orange Group, she is not to be allowed entry under any circumstances. The strong security guards immediately dragged her away. She still tried to throw a tantrum, but one of the guards sternly warned, "Ma'am, if you continue to damage our company's image like this, we have the right to call the police." Recalling the cold days she had spent in prison, Willow's face instantly turned pale, and her struggling weakened. She no longer dared to cause a scene. Scrambling away in a panic, I thought that would finally be the end of it. But after driving Willow away, the bullet comments, which hadn't appeared for a long time, suddenly resurfaced again. It's here. It's here. The real dad is stepping in. CEO Daddy, hurry and save your baby and the female lead. Destroy Orange. Take down George, that cold-blooded second male lead. Even though the male lead used to be a scumbag, compared to this ruthless, black-hearted second male lead, he looks like a saint. Chapter 6. Sure enough, along with the bullet comments flooding wildly with inexplicable excitement, a black sedan silently pulled over by the roadside. The car door opened, and a tall man stepped out briskly, stopping Willow just as she stumbled forward in a dazed, broken state. He was Willow's legal husband, Jordan's biological father, the CEO of Cold Wind Group, Makoto, the very male-led mentioned in those bullet comments. At this moment, he wore an expression of deep anguish. He pulled Willow forcefully into his arms. his voice deliberately lowered, rich and magnetic. "Willow, don't worry, I'm here. I'm sorry, I came too late and let you suffer so much." Willow froze for a moment, then began struggling violently in his arms, pounding his chest as she cried, "Let go of me, Makoto. You're not my husband. Get lost. Just get lost. I don't need your fake concern." But Makoto showed no intention of letting go. Instead, he held her even tighter, fully playing the role of a domineering CEO chasing back his wife. In the end, Willow seemed to run out of strength, or perhaps she truly needed someone to rely on at that moment, and collapsed weakly into his arms, bursting into tears as if trying to pour out all her grievances. While holding Willow and gently patting her back, Makoto glanced at me through the glass curtain wall of the building lobby, and gave me an extremely provocative, cold smirk. Then, without making a sound, he mouthed a sentence at me, his lips forming each word with unmistakable clarity. "George, for daring to hurt Willow like this, you're finished." Seeing this scene, the bullet comments in front of me exploded like it was New Year's Eve, celebrating wildly. "Ah, the domineering CEO strikes. Cold wind is coming. Wong Corporation is about to go bankrupt. Foolish second male lead, did you really think the female lead couldn't live without you? The male lead is her true destiny. The male and female leads joining forces, that's the correct plot direction. Second male lead, just wait for your downfall. Your good days are over." Hee hee. Not gonna lie, now that the male and female leads share a common enemy, they suddenly feel like such a perfect couple, locked in forever. Someone voiced a different opinion. "Heh, so this is our female lead. Huh." Finally dropped the act. The second male lead was just protecting his legitimate interests and got labeled the villain. How amusing. What's with the sarcasm upstairs? Isn't the male lead taking revenge for love cool? That person replied, "Nothing much. Just find it funny that the female lead's entire revenge depends on another man who once hurt her. If the second male lead hadn't stuck to his principles and smacked down these humanoid mimics, would the two of them have reunited this quickly? Instead of thanking him, they're teaming up against him. What a joke. Second male lead, keep it up. Take down all the humanoid mimics. We support you." Watching the bullet comments celebrating as if my bankruptcy was already inevitable, and then looking at the couple outside acting out their dramatic reunion, I let out a helpless sigh. This Makoto, back then, he built his business on the order I gave him. Later, he treated Willow poorly, driving her to leave the country. And now, finally seizing the opportunity thanks to me, he's putting on a show of winning his wife back. Instead of taking his troublesome wife and child away and dealing with them properly, he still has the time to provoke me. Has he forgotten, in this city, whose business empire is larger, and whose voice carries more weight? As expected, birds of a feather flock together. There's clearly something wrong with both of their brains. I called over my assistant and gave a brief instruction. Inform the other companies, avoid any dealings with Cold Wind Group for the time being. Oh, and while you're at it, conduct a thorough check on their company's tax situation. The assistant immediately understood and nodded. Understood, President Wong. I'll handle it right away. I nodded, watching Makoto walk away while holding Willow, talking about how the weather's turning cold, so Wong Corporation should go bankrupt. Let's see who actually ends up going bankrupt. Chapter 7. Back when Willow married that so-called male lead, Makoto, I had, out of years of friendship, helped him as her brother from her side. I gave his Cold Wind Group a push, allowing his company to gain a foothold, but everything comes at a price, since his company stood on its feet because of mine. If I truly decided to take him down, there was no way he could turn things around. In the days that followed, Cold Wind Group began to feel the pressure, clearly and unmistakably. First, several long-term major partners, almost at the same time, proposed to terminate their contracts. Each gave airtight reasons, even willing to pay hefty penalties without hesitation. That alone instantly tightened Cold Wind's cash flow, leaving a deficit of tens of millions. Soon after, Cold Wind's stock price began to plummet. Retail investors panicked and dumped their shares, while institutions downgraded their ratings one after another. And when it rains, it pours. Regulatory departments, industry and commerce, taxation, fire safety, seemed to have coordinated in advance, frequently showing up for routine inspections. Under Willow's constant crying and instigation day and night, Makoto grew desperate. Unable to win in a direct confrontation, he naturally turned to underhanded methods, trying to dig up dirt on Orange, or resort to other shady tactics. Unfortunately for him, every move he made was nothing more than a clown's performance in front of the net I had already laid out. The moment he reached out, he was caught red-handed. The evidence was directly handed over to the relevant authorities and even to his competitors. At the same time, public opinion began to flood with reports about Makoto, stories of him being ruthless, morally corrupt, keeping mistresses, and using cruel tactics. Even I was somewhat surprised by this. Only after having my team dig deeper did I learn the truth. Ever since Willow left the country in a fit of anger, this so-called devoted male lead had been unable to restrain himself. He had been searching everywhere for women who resembled Willow, indulging himself freely. Then, after Willow returned, he tried to quickly erase this disgraceful history. His methods were crude, leaving behind countless traces. Those traces were easily uncovered by my professional team and exposed to the public. Now, not only was the company internally in chaos, with employees uneasy, but shareholders also began applying pressure, questioning why Makoto had brought such trouble upon them. Even Makoto and Willow, who had only just united by directing their hostility toward me, began to fall into internal conflict. At a press conference the next day, the scratches on Makoto's face were so obvious they couldn't even be concealed. Clearly, Willow had something to do with it. It was almost comical. Combined with the bullet comments constantly floating before my eyes, the viewing experience was even more entertaining. Oh my god, what is even happening? The male lead can't even beat the second male lead. Poor female lead baby, her heart shattered after finding out the male lead had substitutes. On one side, it's a life and death business war. On the other, they're scratching each other over mistresses. No wonder they're losing. George be like, I haven't even started trying and you've already collapsed. So satisfying. Pure satisfaction. Second male lead is amazing. As long as there's no forced plot armor later, I'm declaring this story a masterpiece. Amid the chaotic arguments of the bullet comments, the disastrous press conference on TV came to an awkward end. Clearly, Makoto's desperate struggle hadn't salvaged anything. It had only turned into yet another joke. Chapter 8. 3 days later, Cold Wind Group's capital chain snapped, and the company officially declared bankruptcy. As for Makoto himself, he was taken away in full public view by law enforcement for multiple economic crimes, including embezzlement, commercial fraud, and tax evasion, to undergo investigation. Another day, just as my car drove out of the villa garage, I spotted a familiar figure by the roadside. It was Willow. Compared to a few months ago, she looked much more haggard, almost skin and bones. She had learned her lesson. Instead of blocking my car at the company, she chose to stake out near my villa. But what she forgot was that the security in wealthy residential areas is far stricter than at a company. Before she could even get close, she was already pinned to the ground by security. Watching my car pass by without slowing down, she gathered all her strength and screamed hoarsely, George, what did I ever do wrong for you to treat me like this? My husband, my son, you've sent them both to prison, you devil. I treated you like a real brother since we were kids. I trusted you so much, and yet you. As she spoke, it was as if all her strength drained away. She broke down into uncontrollable sobs, her words dissolving into incoherence. I rolled down the car window, looking at her with open impatience. Miss Liu, can you use your brain before speaking? You show up with a child you had with God knows who, block my car, and demand that I be his father, and you call that treating me like a brother? What am I? Some brain-dead idiot? I could have far better partners and my own biological children. Yet I'm supposed to choose you, a second-hand mess full of schemes, and a little delinquent who's already committing crimes at such a young age. The more I spoke, the more I almost laughed out of sheer disbelief. Willow, let me make this clear, you've already seriously disrupted my life. If I see you again, I won't mind helping you out, and sending you overseas once more. You've lived abroad for years. You should know very well that in certain places, making someone disappear without a trace comes with a price. Meeting my cold gaze, all of Willow's cries and grievances froze in her throat. Her face turned deathly pale, her lips trembled, but not a single word came out. She collapsed weakly onto the ground, no longer daring to make a sound. The bullet comments flooded in once again. Wow, the second male lead's words are brutal, but why does it feel so satisfying? A female lead this self-centered, thinking the whole world revolves around her, ending up like this, totally deserved. Exactly, if both sides were willing, no one would say anything. But the second male lead made his boundaries clear from the start, and she kept pushing anyway, stupid and malicious. She had it coming, so satisfying. Seriously. Amid the endless stream of bullet comments, the car window slowly rolled up. The vehicle drove off smoothly, and I didn't spare Willow even a single extra glance. Chapter 9. Later on, Willow finally seemed to grow at least a bit of sense and stopped showing up in front of me to cause trouble. 3 years later, Jordan was released from juvenile detention. After receiving proper education there, he finally understood how to use his talent to contribute to society, instead of being manipulated by his mother into becoming a tool for her emotional entanglements, because their values were fundamentally incompatible. After several intense arguments with Willow, Jordan made a decision that stunned everyone. He voluntarily left home and returned to the juvenile center, applying to continue his education and technical training. To him, That place, which had once confined him, felt more like a real home than the cramped rental apartment where his mother, filled with warped thinking, only held him back. Being completely abandoned by her own son, once her greatest hope and pride, dealt Willow another devastating blow. She lost all will to live, drifting through her days in depression and confusion. She didn't work, surviving almost entirely by scavenging trash. 10 years later, Makoto was released from prison. In those 10 years, the outside world had undergone earth-shaking changes. The rise of the internet had reshaped everything. Business models had evolved beyond recognition, and everything he once knew had become obsolete. On top of that, with a criminal record, making a comeback was nothing more than a distant dream. With nowhere else to go, he eventually found Willow, who had by then become little more than a ragged beggar. Two people abandoned by society and time clung to each other like drowning survivors grabbing onto the last piece of driftwood, barely managing to live together in a filthy, dilapidated low-rent apartment. Yet this couple, who, according to the bullet comments, were supposed to have a happy reunion and a perfect romance, ended up living a life in complete disarray. When poverty enters, everything else falls apart. Not to mention that whatever feelings they once had were long gone, replaced entirely by resentment. Daily arguments, mutual accusations, even physical violence became their norm. They dragged each other down, rotting together in the mud. Seeing such an ugly reality, even the most loyal and blindly devoted fans of the female lead in the bullet comments finally fell silent, unable to force themselves to say another word like, "What a sweet couple." In the end, after getting drunk one night, Makoto turned violent during a domestic dispute and accidentally beat Willow to death. He then lost his footing and fell from a building, dying on the spot. When I heard about this ending from my parents, I couldn't help but laugh. Perhaps people like Willow exist just for this, to bring others a bit of amusement at the moment of their end. I have to admit, she really did give me a good laugh.